Welcome to Station Talk, powered by the Firehouse Tribune, with your hosts, Tom Marciano and Nick Higgins. Two firefighters with a passion for all things fire service related. On this podcast, Nick and Tom sit down with fire service professionals and others to discuss their topics, their lives, on and off duty, and all things fire service related. So sit back and hope you enjoy this episode of Station Talk, powered by the Firehouse Tribune.
All right, hello everyone. Today we're crossing the pond, figuratively speaking, to get a closer look at firefighting in the United Kingdom. Joining us is Crew Manager James Meredith, with 15 years of experience in the UK fire and rescue services, working in North England. James, thanks so much for being here. Absolutely. So, before we kind of get into the aspects and how United States are different versus UK and all aspects, how'd you get into the fire service? That's awesome. Awesome. All right, so we'll dive right into it. I know people are going to be a little interested. I think we're going to have a great discussion today. So, what are some of the biggest differences you've noticed between firefighting in the UK versus the United States? Yeah, and
So,
go ahead, Nick.
go ahead. You go first.
So, and it's funny you bring up ventilation because that's not even just a worldwide thing. Like, you even come to parts of our country, and there's parts of us that don't do the whole ventilation thing. It's kind of like an East Coast thing, and then you see it in a little bit in the West. But yeah, it's definitely it's an interesting difference between the two.
So, with ventilation, so I'm guessing you're doing more horizontal ventilation. Is it basically because of the style of homes that you have there, that they're more kind of together and just stacked? Makes sense.
Yeah.
And that was actually my next question. Are you doing a lot of positive pressure venting based on the type of structure? Because that's a big thing in parts of Arizona. They do that a lot of positive pressure, because theirs are all brick, stucco, terracotta roofs. Are kind of like all like shell looking, so they do more of that.
James, can you talk a bit about the structure of the fire service in the United Kingdom? Like, how are the station staffed? How are crews organized? How does your ranking work? Because you're a crew manager, which I believe you said is like equivalent to a lieutenant, right? Okay. Yep. Yeah, that's kind of like how the volunteers do it here, yeah. Now, what is your typical call volume like out there? Like, are you running, is it mostly fires? Is it mostly medical, technical rescues? Yeah, so
Very similar.
it
Just
sounds
for
like on that aspect, there's not much of a difference at all. A lot of smells and bells and just kind of doing assisting calls and stuff like that. How many calls a year do you guys usually do? Do they keep track of that stuff? Okay.
It's not mad busy, but it's pretty steady, really. We do probably average 4 a day, something like that. So it's enough to keep you busy.
Right. It's enough to keep you not bored.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yep. That's kind of
But then that's that's my station, whereas you might have another station doing less than half of that, for example, depending on the area. So there might be another station doing 500-600 a year, but it might be that they've got they don't do as many calls, but they might have a bigger risk in their area. So if it's like an industrial estate, for example, a lot of factories, oil refineries, things like that. So they might have a smaller call volume, but when they do get calls, they maybe tend to be a bit more juicier, if that makes sense.
They're getting more of like a quality over quantity type thing.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah. So we obviously know just from photos and whatnot how the gear and apparatus can differ a lot too. Are there any tools or techniques that you use over there that you're aware of that may like surprise a firefighter on this side of the pond?
I'm not sure, really. I guess maybe the way we deliver water. So we have what we call a high pressure hose reel, which is it's a 22 mil diameter hose, but it's high pressure, so it delivers a smaller volume of water but a higher pressure. So whereas you guys might take, I don't know what you. So I guess you probably work in flow over there, so you look at maybe like the volume of water that you're taking, rather than the pressure that's at. So we have what we call high pressure hose reel. So it's literally like kind of probably to you guys it would probably just look like a garden hose pipe, and we would pull that up and take that into like a standard kitchen fire or bedroom fire, and sort of the pressure that comes out at, it means that we can use a smaller volume of water, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm thinking like almost like a water can attached to a pump, because that's pressurized that we bring with us.
Yeah.
Okay. But you have a whole reel full of it, and you can just drag that around. Okay.
Yeah. So cool. It's like a 60-meter hose reel that we'll pull off, but we do have what we call delivery hose as well, which is bigger. So we've got 45 mil and 70 mil. So that allows us to deliver a higher quantity of water if we need it. So we work in pressure, but we'll still take into account volume and literage and everything else. So it's just, I remember
that makes sense.
I was at an event a few years ago in Germany, in Schultz it was, and I was speaking to an American firefighter there, and he was quite surprised by the size of the hose. The hose really, he said it just looked like a garden hose to him, and he kind of couldn't get his head around the fact that we would take that into a fire. Yeah.
Well, it makes sense when you think about the type of structures you're using and how you're set up and how the demographics are. It makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, we can still, we'll still deliver, our standard. So if we have say you've got a bedroom fire, our standard approach would be 150 litres a minute at 24 bar pressure. So that's what we would take into a compartment fire. To begin with, that should be sufficient, really, for us for a compartment fire.
Yeah, and so like we know there's a little difference there. Obviously, I'm going to touch on this in a second because the gear is definitely a little bit different. But you know what? We'll go to gear first too. You guys have your crazy Euro helmets, but it's almost as if like sometimes I look at the fire gear that you guys are wearing over there, and to me, it almost seems like it's more jumpsuit like. Like it's not an actual jumpsuit, like you have the coat and stuff like that, but ours kind of look a little more baggier, I guess you can kind of say. But yours look like they're kind of.
Yeah, you guys do tend to be a bit more oversized, don't they? Ours are a bit more close fitting. I'm not really sure what the reason. I guess maybe. I mean, if it's too tight, you run the risk of the heat getting through a bit easier. But then if it's too big, do you run the risk of it getting snagged? So I guess it's just pros and cons to both, isn't there? And you've just got to wait up, really. But that's how we've always had it, really, as long as I've known, really.
Yeah, and like I've always found it an interesting concept because, like, you have firefighters all over the world. Like, there's nothing saying that you can't ship our style gear over to England. Like, so it was always something that always kind of clicked in my mind. Like, why is that so different? And I didn't know if it was because of that there were different studies or whatnot, or because we're Americans and we gotta be like, nope, this is our way, like blah blah blah. There is a department about 30 minutes north of me that just started switching over to the Euro style helmets.
All right, okay.
Yeah,
How's that gone? How's that gone down then?
I guess they like it. Obviously, they get made fun of for it. They do seem to like, the lightweight of it. When the point of the water's running down your back, but on the bottom it curves, so you have water that's running off instead of running down you and stuff. So it probably has its cons. I don't know if the whole department's wearing it or if it was like an option, but it's definitely interesting to see, especially in the northeast of the country, because we, are very big, and the East Coast is very big on their firefighting. So
We use Clan Lucas. We used to use hydraulic cutting gear. So I think when I first joined, it was, what was it? Weber. So we had like Weber. It was like hydraulic, and so you had a hydraulic hose attached to a generator, a petrol powered generator. And now we've got what they call hydraulic, so it just has a battery that goes in the end, so it's quieter. It might be similar over there. It's much quieter. You can easy to maneuver around, and it's supposedly they're even stronger. So yeah, we have spreaders, cutters, and we have rams as well. So we'll have like a major rescue unit, which is sort of got dedicated cutting and spreading gear for all your RTCs, road traffic collisions, and they'll have basically bigger, more powerful tools, and they'll attend.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
we're about the same.
Most of the series crashes. Yeah.
Yeah, we have in my rescue truck and in my firehouse, we have two sets of hydraulic, but we also have the hydraulics as well. So it's probably the same. So it's another comparison that we're not too different of. It's just really the brands per se. This is an interesting question to me, and I was happy I kind of like thought of it and came up with it. Now, I don't know much of your layout where you are, but like I've seen photos of London and stuff like that. Now, your response times when responding, the road layouts, building construction, all that different stuff, how does that factor into play in your daily operations?
So, do you mean in terms of like preparation, or does it slow us down when attending calls, or?
Yeah, like so you have some tight roads over there, especially in London. I know you don't work in London, but like, is there certain times where it's almost impossible for a fire truck to get through? And do you guys set pre-plans that you're planning for that kind of, that traffic, or, building construction?
Yeah, so we do have, I guess the roads here are much smaller than there. And yeah, they do get very busy. So the busiest times for us sort of road-wise will be like first thing in the morning, maybe between 7 and 9 a.m. and then probably between 4 and 6 p.m. So yeah, sometimes, especially if you're going in or out of the city, it can be absolutely chock-a-block, and you end up just having to weave and push and fight your way through, really. And as you'll know, if you both drive, it can be an absolute nightmare sometimes, and people can react in very silly ways. So it's a challenge. I've always enjoyed driving, but it's definitely a challenge. And we generally will have somebody. If the driver doesn't know where they're going, we'll have somebody navigating, or if I'm in charge, I'll be looking at the best route to the incident. And sometimes we'll get, the moment in my patch, we've got a lot of road works going on at the moment, so we've got road closures in place, so we've got alternate routes that we've got to be available, that we've got to be aware of. Yeah, so that's, I guess, road-wise, it's maybe similar there as well.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And, like, on the building construction portion of it, are there certain buildings in your, I guess you can call it your first due area, that you guys have pre-plans for, that you're going to be like, all right, we're going to be the first piece of apparatus here. This is what our job's.
Yeah, so we've got a mix of buildings and risk in the area. We have what we call sometimes so if it's a particularly interesting site, or if it's a complex site, or if there's a specific risk there, or it's there's heritage there and it's something that maybe needs to be protected, or say it was a stately home, for example, and it's hundreds of years old and it's full of antiques and valuable artwork and all that, we would have something for that property called an SSRI, so that's site-specific risk information. So it's like a file basically that I would access on the way to the job, and it would tell me the hazards on site, it would tell me the risks, it would tell me the building construction, it would tell me how many people are on site during the day, on a night, where the water supply is, it might tell me what the PDA is, so that's predetermined attendance for us. So predetermined attendance would be how many engines we're going to get. So it might be that the PDA for a certain property is 5 fire engines, an aerial, and a high volume pump, which is basically what we would use to pump a massive supply of water. So I guess, back to building construction, it would definitely inform the way we approach the incident, and it might be that it's part of my assessment when I get there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It definitely does. And we'll get right into another favorite topic of mine, training. So, how are United Kingdom firefighters trained and certified, and how often do you have to do your drills, or do you requalify for certifications?
So, to start with, when you first join, it varies really from county to county. Some services, I think, put you through an 8-week course. Some it'd be 12 weeks. Some it might be 16 weeks. So you'll do your initial training course. So you'll get on station and you'll be in probation for 2 years, roughly, give or take, each service. So you might have some services where you're out of probation after 18 months. Some it might be 2.5 years. It depends on the individual, and it depends on the service and how they run it. And through that, let's take that 2-year period, you'll do further training on station to sort of further compound what you've learned on your initial course, and you'll have regular periodic assessments where you'll have to go to headquarters and get assessed and prove that you're competent basically in each area of the role. And then after that 2 years, you'll be awarded what we call competent status, which means you're basically a fully qualified member of the crew, and you can kind of relax a little bit then, and you're not as much in the spotlight. You'll get a salary increase, and you're a full member of the crew then. Regular training, so we also do it's an 8-week training cycle. So all the different areas of our role map, we'll have to do those at least once every 8 weeks. So it might be 1 week we'll go on the yard and we'll do pumping drills and firefighting. So we might do pumping from open water, pumping from a hydrant, and we might do a BA drill, and we'll do firefighting tactics and door entry procedures and different aspects of tactical firefighting basically. And then the next week we might do road traffic collisions and so on. And then we just kind of go on a cycle really and make sure that we're doing everything on a regular basis to keep all our skills up.
So, not much different from this side either.
Right, yeah.
Kind of seems about the same. Maybe the time lengths and the amounts might be different in some portions and stuff, but for the most part, that seems like it's all the same thing.
Yeah, that would make sense, really. It kind of seems the logical way to do it, I guess. And I mean, yeah. we do long days, so it's not difficult to find the time really. And unless you have a really busy day and we've got other stuff planned in, generally on a tour, what we call a tour is 2 days, 2 nights, and then 4 days off. So it's it's not that difficult to fit it in really.
So you work. So that's like your shifts: 2 days, 2 nights, and then you're off for 4 days. How long is each shift?
12 hours.
So you'll do like a 7 to 7A to 7P 2 days in a row, and then a 7P to 7A, and then you're off for 4.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. What do you guys do there? I imagine there's a mix depending on where you are.
There's a few different ones. So like the FD&Y in New York City, they have like, I think it's like a 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and then there's a 6 p.m. to a 9 a.m. But the guys go in early and stuff, but they also have mutual partners, so they can do like full 24-hour tours. So they do like, I'll go in at 9 a.m. and I'll work until 9 a.m. the next day. And there's a lot of departments that have 24-hour shifts. And then they'll
72.
Yeah, and they're off. And then I know
some do 12.
Yeah. I know a few in the federal, like the governments that cover, or the agencies that cover like governments, like West Point Military Academy, stuff like that. Like they run, I think it's like 48-hour tours, and they're off for 3 days or something. Yeah.
So they do 48 hours straight, do they?
Yep. My friend works for Veterans Affairs Hospital, and he does 72-hour tours.
Just 72 hours
straight on 72s, and he's off for like 5 days or something like that, whatever it is. But,
and that's at the station. He didn't go off to another apartment somewhere. That's
for that
72 hours at the station.
Tour, yeah.
Wow.
Yep. So it's interesting, but there's a few, and I don't know how that really works. Like, I don't know if that's something that the city handles, or if the unions kind of handle the scheduling and stuff. But there's no real rhyme or reason. You can throw something at different fire departments, and they all act differently. So, like in New York City, you're assigned to your company, and that's where you are for your all your tours, unless you're on like overtime or detail or something like that. But then there's a department in Nick's state, Patterson, and like I think for the first 12 hours you're like on the ambulance or something, right? And you switch halfway through. So
yeah, there's some that do that. There's some that it's just straight 12 hours. 24. Sometimes you could be assigned to a truck, but they'd be like, "Hey, you show up on your 12 or 24-hour," and they're like, "Hey, we're down a man on engine at engine 5 house, so head on over to engine 5, get your gear. You're gonna backfill that for the day." You didn't even know, but you're on a different. So every town, every city has its own little quirks to it, but the majority is to make the 24, 72 off because of the health benefit behind it. But some don't have the manpower, the dollars to do it. So it's just what they got to do.
Yeah. We've got around a couple of services in the UK that do tours. So there's one that do 24 on, 72 off, and then there's another one that does 24 on, 24 off, 24 on, 5 days off. Generally, most do the 2-2-4. Quite a lot will do the 9s, days 9 to 6, and then nights 6 till 9. But there's a few that are sort of slightly different times. But yeah, generally, you've got 2 days, 2 nights, 4 days off. That's kind of the predominant shift pattern over here, really.
Makes sense. So switching over, and we'll talk about the culture and community aspect of firefighters and departments out in the UK. So how would you describe the public's relationship with the fire crews in the UK? Is there community engagement or education, or is it kind of just no real engagement?
Yeah, we do. We actually do quite a lot of that, to be honest. We seem to be doing quite a lot of school visits at the moment. So yeah, we'll go into primary schools, and we'll speak to the kids about fire safety. So we're looking probably generally between the ages of about 7 and 10, maybe, is sort of our primary target for education and prevention. And we'll go in and we'll speak to them about fire safety in the home, and having smoke alarms and what to do, stop, drop and roll and all that sort of thing. And then we'll take them outside, we'll show them around the fire engine, show them what we do, and just kind of engage with them and give them a bit of an awareness of what it is we do, really. And and then they get to do the fun part, climbing all over the engine and squirting water and everything like that. So that's generally what we do in schools. That seems to be sort of our bread and butter when it comes to engaging with kids. And we'll also do certain events with adults. So we'll do road safety events with sort of maybe young adults, so teenagers, early 20s. We'll speak to them about, you know, driving and using your mobile phone, and we'll talk to them about the risks of doing that and try and target specific ages with maybe what the specific risk is. So, you know, say 18-year-old lads, probably their biggest risk is car accidents. So, you know, we'll try and engage with them on that basis, and we'll go into nursing homes as well and do talks there. So that is quite a big part of the job for us, really, community engagement. And we have station open days. Yeah, so it's a big part of the job for us over here, really, is that.
Yeah, see, I like that because, again, like, I came into this conversation expecting to hear so many differences, and, you know, we're 8, 9 questions in, whatever it is, and then in reality, although the execution of some things may be slightly different, it's really all branched off from the same, like, the job's the job. And it seems like that's almost like no matter where you are. Maybe techniques and stuff are a little different, but at the end of the day, like, we're all here for one thing. You know, we're here to save people and put fires out. And it seems like we're all on the same branch.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't think it would take much for, you know, if a UK firefighter went to America or an American firefighter came to the UK, I don't think it would take much to settle in to the ways over here or over there, for example.
It's interesting you brought that up because my next 2 questions actually kind of revolve around that. So, have you ever worked or trained alongside any American firefighters?
I haven't actually, no. I've spent a bit of time with German and French firefighters, but
okay,
no one from over the Atlantic, unfortunately. No.
Is there any differences between you guys and, like, Germany?
I would say when we went over there, so we did like an exchange visit and went over there, and they seem to have more resources over there. They seem to have bigger stations with loads of fire engines and more, you know, a bigger crew. So in terms of personnel and approach, definitely there certainly seems to be a bit more flush when it comes to having resources to throw at an incident. But in terms of tactics, we kind of take a lot of influence from Europe, I think, in terms of firefighting and our approach. I think we just seem to be a few years behind them, really.
Makes sense.
We one time at my old station, we had 4 or 5 guys from Spain come and stay with us for like a week and a half, and because we had one of our EMTs was from there, she had a relative who was a firefighter in some town, and he coming to visit, and he brought like 5 guys from his station with him, and it was just the most. They were laid back. They said it was way different. It was like a shell shock to come into an American firehouse, but the food was good. You know, we cooked, they cooked. You know, we had like all that kind of stuff. But, you know, Andy Starnes with his company Insight Fire, it's not a hook on that. I'm not plugging him in there, but he goes over to Germany and he talks about thermology. And you know the word I'm trying to say.
Thermal imaging.
That's it. I couldn't get it out. Thermal imaging with the German firefighters, and I'm pretty sure he brings in other people from other parts of Europe, other parts of the world, and it's a good experience from the videos he's posted and seen, and you know, so a lot of blending in with other cultures is definitely a way to keep expanding your knowledge. It's
yeah,
cool.
No, absolutely. Now, James, from your perspective, and I know you haven't really worked alongside any American firemen, and you know, you and I just met 36 minutes ago. So, you know, from your perspective, what's something that you feel United Kingdom departments could learn from United States fire services and vice versa? Like, is there anything that might stand out to you? Or
yeah, so you guys have been doing medical response for a long time, haven't you? It's just part and parcel of what you do over there, I think, isn't it? For us, it's not really part of our role. So we're trained. So we're trained in trauma care and everything. So, you know, if we go to an incident, we can deal with the injuries in front of us. But in terms of medical response, you know, cardiac response and things like that, that's something that they want to introduce for us and make it part of our role. So I guess it'd be interesting from your perspective to see how that affects you, what impact it has on the rest of your role, your other operational priorities, and what effect it has on your mental health, your physical health, and how it impacts you. Imagine, you're busier, you probably deal with more difficult incidents, more fatalities, and it probably has quite a significant impact on your mental health. So it'd be interesting from my perspective, working somewhere that they want to introduce that for us, which would be, an expansion of our role. It would be interesting to look at somewhere that has been doing it for a long time and look at how you deal with it, how it affects you, and how you deal with it, basically.
Yeah, that's a great way, because it's interesting because not all of us like run EMS calls. The volunteer service, a lot of them do. I don't think Nick's department runs them either.
Right. Okay.
My one house does. Well, one house now does.
Okay.
It was 3, but now it's down to 1. And then they're going straight. A lot of departments, even all across the state, are going to outsourced EMS, cut costs, and do it on a contractual basis with the hospitals that have paramedics instead of having AMTs in the house. It takes the workload off at the same time.
Yeah.
Let's
Like,
just pay us.
Your engine company, like, you guys don't do the EMS calls, though, right?
Me?
Nick? Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
My current house that I'm at, that I've been at for a while, we've never had EMS. Our other house did, and our headquarters had it. But other than that, we just a straight engine house.
Yep, that makes sense. Yeah.
But we do train in it.
Which makes sense because EMS calls, like MVAs, are kind of like an EMS call. So then you get some departments over here, James, that run EMS calls because it boosts like their numbers up. So, and then they can get funding because they did this much stuff. But without the EMS calls, like, those numbers kind of plummet. So it's almost like playing the game.
Yeah, I guess. So I guess for me, I guess I'm just assuming really that most of you do EMS. Yeah, that's me just making an assumption there that you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was under the impression most departments did, and doing it sucked. But I mean, you feel a little more sense of gratification because you're directly working with a person. But when you have those days where the person doesn't make it, or you have no idea what happens, you don't know the end result.
Yeah.
As opposed to being a firefighter, talk about that mental health. You don't really. Sometimes you wonder. There's some calls that I've did CPR on, and I'm like, whatever happened to that guy?
Yeah.
You don't hear that result.
You don't always find same here. You don't. You can cut somebody out of a car. You're doing CPR on them for 10 minutes, and then they get whizzed off in an ambulance, and you never hear anything about them ever again. So it's quite difficult, really. It does leave you wondering sometimes, doesn't it?
Yeah, and no one really ever talks about it. But so like we could jump right into the mental health section of it now, because we decided we wanted to talk about this too, just to see what the differences are. And so, what kind of mental health support services are in place for firefighters in the UK? And is it easy to get connected to their services?
So it's not amazing, to be honest. There's a lot to be said for what we're lacking really in support for mental health. So we have a pretty basic standard of support. So we have our occupational health units within every service, and there'll be a counselling service available. Speaking as somebody who's had counselling, I've had counselling that was provided on behalf of the service, and then I actually decided to seek help elsewhere because I didn't feel it was really doing me any good, to be honest.
Right.
So
yeah, it didn't really.
It wasn't. It wasn't
didn't meet the objective.
Exactly. It wasn't what I needed, and there didn't seem to be. I don't know if it was just that I got paired with the wrong. I got given somebody that wasn't a good fit for me, but the service that I kind of found myself in receipt of, I didn't rate it. I didn't think it was good enough. So I decided to seek help from the Firefighting charity, which is basically our sort of go-to charity for firefighters in the UK. And I was then given a a 6-week course of counselling from a specialist on their team, and that made a massive difference to me. So that was really helpful. But I kind of had to find that off my own back, if that makes sense, because the support that I was given wasn't really up to scratch, unfortunately.
Right.
So
it wasn't really what you wanted.
yeah, exactly. We've got the kind of the bog standard level of care that is in place for people. Maybe it works for some people, but mine's not the only story like that, if that makes sense. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
I was very thankful that we've got the Firefighters charity, and now if I was going to tell somebody else where to go, that's what I'd say to them, really.
Yeah.
To be honest.
That makes sense. Is the culture around mental health changing over there? Like, are firefighters more open about stress, trauma, or burnout than they were 10, 15 years ago? Because, like, I know in the United States, there's definitely a stigma against mental health, and you get people who might be suffering, but they don't want to be looked at as weak. So, does that exist where you are, or has it gotten better or worse?
Absolutely, yes. It does still exist. It has improved. It's got a lot better than when I joined. I mean, 15 years ago, it wasn't really acknowledged, to be honest. And it was kind of a. I mean, it's just, I think about a lot of the guys that I worked with when I first joined, sort of, older, sort of typically stoic guys that wouldn't really speak about the feelings, and you kind of have to be wary of inheriting those kind of characteristics yourself and picking up those ways, because it's very easy to fall into that trap of trying to emulate the people you look up to and respect. And if they're putting out a particular message that we shouldn't talk about the way we're feeling, it's very easy for everyone else to follow that. Fortunately, I think in the last few years there has been a bit of a shift, and people do seem to be opening up. And I mean, the watch I'm on at the moment is everyone's very supportive of each other, and it's a good culture, really. I think where we're at now, we're definitely way ahead of where we used to be in terms of what people are willing to discuss and what people are willing to accept, and the way people would like to help each other out and support each other, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's good. I feel like, I'm sure Nick will agree with me, that I feel like we're on the right track towards it and we're making progress, but there's still a long way to go, I think, in our side.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a generational difference, especially you still have direct generation coming from the descendants of the war, World War II. So I think a lot of that has to do with that one generation of the stoicism, like you were mentioning. Those older generations don't talk about it,
Yeah, you'll be fine. Yeah.
Hey, that worked for that time. You can't knock it. But nowadays,
James, in your opinion, is there anything that's still missing when it comes to protecting firefighter mental health?
Yeah, I think the way that we're supported, it's very kind of. I don't think it's personal enough. I think there's kind of, if you go to a difficult incident, the general approach kind of, even now, often seems to just still be, is everybody okay? Just asking the group, is everybody okay? Or you might get an email after a job that says, if you're suffering, these are the places you can go for help.
And that's the end of it.
And that's, yeah, exactly, yeah. So I think what we need is, we need somebody to actually come down, say we've had a difficult job. What we need is somebody to come down to the station and say, look, let's talk about it. I'm here. If let's have a discussion. Let's have a discussion as a group, and then maybe go off and discuss it individually with each other. Because I think if you just ask everybody, is everybody okay? People are just going to say, yeah, I'm fine. And I think there needs to be more sort of face-to-face engagement, really, than just sending out an email and ticking a box. We need more face-to-face engagement.
Yeah, if someone comes up to the three of us and says, hey, you guys good? Like, we're all going to say yes, because neither one of us want each other to know that we're not okay. So I do agree with you. If you were to kind of put it more on a personal one-on-one basis or something like that, then, because even email sometimes people get a little scared of because they don't want to send an email knowing that there's a trail now. And someone could say, hey, look at this email from so-and-so, and it all goes out the window, which is a shame that we live in that type of world. And I'm not saying that it would happen, but the three of us all know that it could potentially happen. So that's definitely interesting. And have you noticed, or have you personally noticed, a shift in your own crew or station culture when it comes to checking in on one another? Like, are you guys pretty good with it? Like, or do you really just take the, yeah, you're fine, all right, cool, and that's pretty much the end of it? Or do you try to make sure guys are actually okay?
Yeah, I think the watch I'm on now, definitely everyone's pretty supportive of each other, and I think we would genuinely sort of kind of want to make sure everybody was okay. That there's probably teams I've worked with in the past that might not go that far, and it might just be yeah, you're all right. You'll all just tell each other you're okay when really you might not be, and that's the end of it. And yeah, I guess depending on what it was, and sometimes that's okay, and you can forget about it. But sometimes we'll have all been to incidents where they will crop up, they will reoccur in your mind or whatever, even years later. So I think it's good that I am part of a watch now, that I feel we do look after each other, really, in my opinion. Yeah, if somebody was struggling, I think there'd be more than one person that would notice and would want to do something about it, to be honest. Yeah,
That's good. That shows a lot about your firehouse. You got something, Nick?
No, I just think that's really good. You guys are just keeping that check in on each other. It's something that a lot of departments, a lot of companies don't do with each other. It's just in and out, and to keep to show that you care, keeps that engagement, keeps you wanting more, keeps you want to come back.
Yeah, definitely, and it makes you
want to be there.
Yeah, and you enjoy. It makes you enjoy working together, and you
Yes.
enjoy coming to work, and you want to work with those people, and it's good.
Yeah. So we're winding down to the very end here, but that kind of leads into the next question too. What keeps you passionate about the job? I mean, 15 years that's a decent amount of time too. Nick's got about the same as me. I think we have like 21, right? 22 years, something like that.
Roughly, yeah.
So him and I are both at that same point. You're at 15. So what keeps you passionate about keeping coming back?
I think for me at the moment, like I said, I'm enjoying the team I'm a part of. I have a great laugh at work, and it's good. I enjoy, the day-to-day sort of camaraderie on the station, and as well as that, I think knowing that you're doing something that's making a difference to people. I've said to people before, a routine day for us, just a normal day for us, could be the worst day of somebody's life, and you're with them in that moment, and you've got an opportunity to try and make that a little bit better for them. And for me, that's quite a special thing, really, and that's quite a special position to be in, and be able to have that impact on somebody is a big deal, I think. So that, for me, that's something that I think sort of keeps me interested.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Go ahead, Nick.
I like what you said. A routine day for us could be the worst day for somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely.
That speaks so much volume right there in itself.
Yeah, I mean, we go to small little dryer fires and stuff, like, that's nothing for us, but for someone, that's it. That's the worst day of their life.
And that could be their only experience of interacting with us as well. That
Correct.
could be the one time they interact with us in their whole life, and it's for us. It's just another day. So I think it's important to we all get tired and whatever, but I think it's important to try and be mindful of that when we're engaging with people, I think.
No, I agree. This has been, an incredible conversation, but before we wrap up, I do want to ask you two more things. One, if you had one message for your fellow firefighters, whether they're in London or like in Chicago, what would that be?
I think as important as this job is to you, and as much as it means to you, you need to have something outside of it. You need to make sure that you've got something just as important as this. You know, at home, I would say prioritise your family over this job, because I've said before to people, your job could replace you tomorrow, but your family can't replace you. So I think it's important for people to prioritise the family and prioritise the health, and also to remember that it's okay to care about your health. You know, we're not robots, we're not machines. We have an expiration date, and it's okay to put yourself first now and again, because if you don't look after yourself, you're no good to anybody else. So I think just remember that it's okay to put yourself first, it's okay to care about your health, and if you want to look after others, you're going to have to look after yourself first.
Yeah. And, you know, I always say you got to kind of, in order to bring your A game to the people who need you, you have to have mentally be on your A game, or else you're not going to be any good to anyone. So I'd like to thank you for coming on the podcast, and I appreciate you and your crew and stuff listening to us and, you know, whatnot. It's cool to be able to know that we, you know, reach across the pond and people listen to our platform. I do want to give you the opportunity, though, because we're all about, you know, helping each other out and raising the fire service. Do you want to give us a little sneak peek about a podcast that you might be starting, or are you going to make us wait?
Yeah, so I mean, it's been in the works, and Nick will know. I've been talking about it for a while,
Yeah.
and it's. I'm finally at the position now where I think I'm getting it off the ground. I've got a few interviews booked in, so hopefully in the next few months. It's taken for a while, but I'm actually at the stage now where it should be up and running soon. So yeah, I mean, my Instagram page is Stokeandvent, so it'll just be the Stokeandvent podcast, and yeah, the idea is to focus on firefighter health and well-being, mental health, physical health, cancer prevention, and also looking at, you know, other industries, health and safety in other industries. What I really want to look at is how we can prevent occupational illness and, you know, people dying from work. Really, what can we learn from the past, and how can we apply those lessons today? How can we apply those lessons to today, and try and reduce the suffering that people go through as a result of their occupation? Really, that's going to be my goal with it. So yeah, look out for it. Hopefully it won't be too much longer, and I'll give you a heads up.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. You know, Nick and I will definitely advertise it and, you know, get things out there for you as well, just help you out. So you heard him, Stokeandvent on Instagram. I actually think it is at Stokeandvent, spelled out A-N-D. You can follow him there. Keep up to date with all his stuff. He's doing, you know, it says promoting firefighter long-term health and well-being. So you know what it's about. Podcast coming soon. It's all on there. Give him a follow. James, this has been great. Thank
you. Thanks for having me.
No, we really appreciate it.
I've enjoyed it.
Anything before I close it out?
Yeah, thanks James again for taking the time to sit with us. I mean, you sat with me at the 5-2 Firefighter, and just love what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Same to you guys. Thanks a lot.
Nah, I appreciate it. So, to our listeners, James, everyone out there, stay safe, and remember, behind every siren is a story. Catch you next time on Station Talk. Thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of Station Talk, powered by the Firehouse Tribune. We hope you enjoyed today's content. We would appreciate it if you could give us a 5-star rating and or leave us a review. Be sure to stay up to date with our latest news, articles, podcasts, and events by visiting us on our Instagram page at FH Tribune or our website, thefirehousetribune.com, or on our Facebook. Just search The Firehouse Tribune. You can also contact us regarding our presentations, or even if there's a topic you'd like to hear on Station Talk. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, work hard, stay safe, and live inspired.